All right, so we're on the other side of the feast. And so I was like, okay, Lord, then what do you want me to teach on? And he reminded me of back when I was in college for the first time. That I had an elective, like I had, elective classes, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to try Intro to Philosophy. I thought that would be an easy elective, right? Oh, my word. Like, I was not prepared for philosophy. And I swear it was not an intro course. I mean, the way that there were other students in there, and it's like they all had a secret code to talk a certain way, and I was just completely perplexed. I mean, I'm like 19, 20 years old, just like, what do you mean what is? Like, literally, we had a whole class discussion about what is. And I'm sitting here going, it is. It's just, it is. Like, and I'm like, where is this coming from, right? And it wasn't until I went to seminary many years later that I started to realize that philosophy, which actually is phileo sophia. So phileo meaning love, like affection for, and sophia being Greek word for wisdom. And so really what philosophy is supposed to be is a love for wisdom, a love for truth, And I looked back on this experience I had as an undergrad, and I realized why it wasn't connecting. One, I'm super pragmatic. So when you're sitting here like talking about things that are theoretical, hypothetical, have no basis in reality, I have a very hard time tracking. Like I need to map it onto something that's real. But also, it wasn't until seminary that I realized theology is philosophy. Right? Because theology, it's the studyology of theos, God. Well, that's what philosophy is, a love of truth. And that's why it wasn't making sense, is because these philosophers were asking these questions about God, about life, about reality, about themselves, but they were trying to answer it without God. So when they sat there going, well, what is, that's why I'm utterly perplexed. Because they're trying to map it onto something that doesn't include God. And how do you talk about what is? How do you talk about reality without God?
Amen.
Right? And so I'm like, okay, so that gave me grace that was the class that ruined my GPA. I'm like, okay, Lord. I'm taking that as good. Oh, I was very angry. But if we actually think about that, what the is, right? So I started thinking through that, right? And really, it's different. It's a form of to be, right? So it is, you are, I am. They're all a form of to be, right? It's all existence. And so when they're saying they're talking about what is existence, it's like, well, then you absolutely have to talk about God, because what did he say his name was? I am.
Wouldn't that be a dangerous course without the foundation, the basis in the Word and of God? Think about the possibility of mind where they could take it.
Right.
It's a brilliant mind without a good heart, which is dangerous.
Right. And sitting there trying to feed into this idea that somehow they can find the answer without God, it's very much the serpent in the garden, right? So I started just spending some time in that, like what is what is existence? Like it's God, right? He said, I am. That's his name. His name is existence. His name is, right? And Genesis 1:1, in the beginning, God. Like that's all that there was. In the beginning was just God. Until he spoke. He spoke things into existence. Right? And if you think about speaking, it requires breath. And for us, it requires vocal cords, because when the breath moves over those cords, it creates a vibration. Vibration is energy. Vibration is how we measure whether or not something's alive. Right? And so it's like, okay, so God he is the Big Bang, right? Like he is that point where he says, let there be light. And all of a sudden, there's light, there's energy, right? And he spoke it. He's the source of all that exists, right? And then when he decided to take dirt, right, and form the first human, how did he make him alive? He breathed into him. Right? So he spoke, which requires breath, to bring everything into existence. And then he crafted Adam, but he wasn't alive until God breathed into him. And then in the upper room, after Jesus resurrected and he shows up, right? He breathes on them and says, receive my spirit. I am. Nothing is without I am. And it's his breath that animates and gives life, because he was giving physical life to Adam at the beginning. And what's the first thing we do when we're born? We inhale. And what's the last thing we do when we die? Exhale. Right? So it's like this breath, like he's in each breath, because each breath allows us to be, right? In Colossians 1 is where it talks about all things were created by him, through him, for him, and in him all things hold together. There is nowhere in reality or existence that Jesus isn't. And one of my favorite passages, because this just so resonates with me, is in Acts 17, when Paul is in Athens, right? And he's talking to the philosophers. And he says, in him, in Christ, we live and move and have our being. In him, we live and move and have our being. And so it's just, I don't know, just pausing and just really thinking about that nothing exists without him. He holds everything together. It's his breath, his very breath, that animates us and makes us physically alive, but also now spiritually alive.
When you said that about the breath, how important it was, I had this thought come to my mind. Throughout life, you can place your priorities in order. On this means more than that means more than that. But you shut somebody's windpipe off, all those priorities take a back seat to breath.
Uh-huh.
You'll see them rearrange them real quick to want to breathe again.
Absolutely.
Well, it's making me also, sorry. Well, it's also making me think about, I've heard it said by a Messianic Jew. He says it's the holy kiss. But it makes me think about what happened last Wednesday, week before last, where we were in the tabernacle tent, and it was like a heavenly kiss. And remember, his presence was so sweet, and it's like, so it makes me think when he comes like that,
Yeah.
it's his kiss upon us. How amazing when he breathed that first kiss, that first breath into
Right.
Adam.
Yeah.
It makes me think of and I'm interested in science and astrology. We're not New Age astrology, but
Yeah.
the universe and
Yeah.
stuff. But I forget the exact quote that Albert Einstein said. What he came to the agreement that there had to be a God. And when we were talking about energy and vibration, that made me think how cool it was that to this day, astrologers believe that the universe is ever expanding and it's still growing, and that being an echo of his voice going throughout all
Still
of
going.
existence and still echoing out and creating.
Yeah.
And that's really cool to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a book I read by Louis Giglio. Some of you might have heard him speak before. And the book is called I Am Not, But I Know I Am. So I am as in all quotes, So, and in fact, I know Stacy listened to it, but I shared a video where a man was talking about an experience that he was having. But in it, I'd never heard this definition before, but I really liked it. And he said, that the fear of God is living in the revelation that I am not God, he is. And so the title of that book, right? I am not, but I know I am. Like, that's the fear of God, is living in that revelation. And I am not, but I know who is, and I know him, right? So in that book, he shared an insight or something that the Holy Spirit showed him. And I want to share that with you because, I don't know, I just think it's cool, and I have it marked in my Bible. But so if you want to turn to John 1 with me, I want to show you something. So remember that God said his name is I am, which is a form of to be, right? So he is existence. So to be. Well, in verse 14, which this is going to be familiar to people, I think I even included it a couple weeks ago in my message. And it's and the word, capitalized because it's logos, referring to Jesus, right? And the word became flesh. Became is a compound word. So if we split it into the two words that it constitutes, the word be came. Like, think about that for a second. And the word be came. The I am came.
Because he's always been, but he came. To be is to be, and then he came.
Right?
Hold on, can we pray over the conference and put a download of understanding on some of it? It's so simple.
Well, like to be, she was saying earlier, like to be or not to be. No. But
It is
to
the
be
question.
is like to exist, right? So she's saying in that compound, to be the existence
I am,
of the I am.
existence, Yahweh, right? That's what Yahweh means, is I am. And the word Yahweh, and the word being, and the word he came.
You know, to have that reverent fear of the Lord, you've got to know him and understand, because me 7 years ago, I am meant nothing. I knew I am. But to know God, the Old Testament God, what he did to Aaron's sons for playing around with him, to now the new covenant, if you don't even have that little bit of knowledge of God, I am means nothing. To
Right.
me means nothing.
Right.
Yeah, and that's sad. Think about how many people out there, even myself back in the day,
Yep.
that's sad to not know I am.
Yeah. And if you think too, just going back to what I am, be, spoke everything into existence. That's who came. The voice that spoke everything into existence. The one who breathed life into Adam. He came. Right? I mean, it's just like really letting that sink in. So anytime I hear that verse now, when people say, and the word became flesh, I'm like, no, the word be. He came.
Yeah, that does have
Be came.
Sit there and ponder.
No,
for
be.
years.
He came. Right? Be came. Okay, here's another cool one. Okay, turn to Matthew 5. All right, so Matthew 5, it starts the Sermon on the Mount. But in your Bible, what's the heading right above verse 2? The who attitudes?
Be attitude.
Whose attitudes?
Oh, God.
That just took on a whole different spin. Like,
It's B's attitudes.
yeah.
It's Yahweh's attitudes.
Some of the simplest words in the English language could blow your
Dumb
mind.
language that we learned in school.
Be is.
Learned nothing.
Right. I mean, I grew up my whole life like being familiar with the Bible and hearing about the Beatitudes, and I thought that was the weirdest word, right? And then I read, and then all of a sudden I got this, and I'm like, it's B's attitudes. Like, duh.
And think about the bee's attitudes. Think about a beehive.
Right. We're supposed to be in the hive. Yep. B's attitudes.
Yeah, they
So
got-
we talk about poor in spirit, right? Being meek, hungering and thirsting for righteousness, being merciful, pure in heart. Those are all Yahweh's attitudes. And we're supposed to have them too. They're B's attitudes. So you can actually see it in my Bible. I have a little slash separating B and attitude. Okay, I got one more. This one, Louis Giglio didn't do. I did this one because I was just like, come on, Lord, there's got to be more, right? Okay, John 3:16. I know most of us can.
We know what that is.
Yep.
It's true.
Because you know it so well.
Begotten, right? That's not the B word I was going to look for, though. No, but you're right. Begotten, right? We got B. All right. The word I was going to point out is, for God so loved the world that he gave his only son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life. So I sat there going, okay, so is believe, is that a compound word?
Yep.
Okay.
Throw an E in it, and we got to live.
Well, actually, so if you want to follow along, because it's cool, you can either go to dictionary.com, or I always keep the dictionary app on my phone. But if we look up Lieve, okay, don't let it autocorrect. It's going to want to autocorrect to like live or something like that, okay? So when you look up Lieve, it's a word.
What?
Yes, it's an adverb, and it's a form of leaf, Lief, right? Because believe is a form of belief. So if I click on the Lief, okay, so let's look at what is Lief then. Brandy, what's that definition right there, that first one?
Gladly, willingly.
Gladly, willingly. So what does it mean to believe? Gladly, willingly, be. Gladly, willingly, Yahweh. Gladly, willingly, Jesus.
Free philosophy class on Sunday morning.
See? Go back to that professor and ask for my grade to be revised.
Which that also compounds with the joy beyond all understanding that we would have if we were gladly
Willingly, yeah. And that's what I realized was, because we know we're supposed to believe in our heart and confess with our mouth, right? It's not just believe with your mind. It's not just acknowledge. Even the demons acknowledge him. They know he's real, right? So that's not what saves. What saves is when we gladly and willingly be. We gladly and willingly live and move and have our being in him. We gladly, willingly inhale that breath that reanimates our spirit and makes us go from being dead to alive.
See, and that also like makes me believe, like obviously in his flesh as a man, there was a part of, I believe, in his flesh, there was a part of him that was very hesitant and didn't want to endure the pain of the cross. But he gladly and willingly endured the pain of the cross.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. And now it's an invitation for each of us. Because you can't force it. You can't coerce it. You can't manipulate it, right? Like, it has to be gladly and it has to be willingly.
I've said this before, with the most profound picture on the Passion of Christ for me is where he crawled on the cross on his own power. If that had been me, you'd have been dragging me up that hill. I would have carried it. They'd have beat me the whole way up there, because ain't no way I'd have done it. But he crawled on it on his own.
Yeah.
which separates completely man
Yeah.
and completely God.
Yep. Yep. So, my background, I went into psychology and did that for a couple decades. And when I started teaching and all of that, and I started to realize, like the opening sequence of The Chosen, where the fish all of a sudden start swimming the wrong direction. I always felt like that in the field of psychology. Like, I'm the fish that's flowing in the wrong direction because I'm just not this secular humanist that's just, teaching all this gobbledygook or whatever. Um, but also, like, I couldn't go around just being, like, trying to talk to colleagues, trying to, and just try to put everything in Christian terms either, because that wouldn't have made any sense. That would not have resonated. And so what I started to realize is this, like, space in psychology that I kind of sit in. It's called existential psychology. And it's different than humanistic, because if we look at the root word, existential is about existence. Humanistic is about humanness. Mm-hmm. And so all the secular humanists, they want to elevate your humanness. And they want to say that you can be your own God, and you have all the answers inside of you, and you're like, all these things, which I could never get on board with. I'm like, no, like that is not what we should be elevating and praising, right? But also, the bigger questions I had was more about existence, purpose, like meaning, relationship. Like, how do you find why you're alive? Like, what you're contributing, to the world. And honestly, that's what an existential crisis is. It's when we hit those moments where we're like, why am I here? What does any of this mean? And go back to philosophy, they're trying to answer those questions without God. That's what a lot of psychologists are trying to do too. It's like, well, what's the meaning of your life? If you don't have God, then you're going to end up seeing people struggling with these existential questions. Why am I here? Because anything without Jesus, it's going to be unfulfilling. It's going to be unsatisfying. Because we were made to be with him. So I wanted us this morning to really just sit in that and really resonate with the fact that he is our source and he's the answer to all those questions. Mm-hmm. Right? Because we need to know that answer first before we can go and try to offer it to anyone else. That's right. And so from that space then, like I said, talking about our prodigals, talking about a world that, why do you think it keeps getting worse and worse? Because they don't have the answer. Mm-hmm. Because they're told that they are their own source. Like, how depressing is that? Mm-hmm. Right? Like I remember hearing people, professionals say, well, they got the answers inside of them. And I'm like, no, they don't.
So what's their answer
Right.
when they've got people like that? Because eventually, with God being God, you're going to come to the end of yourself eventually. Uh-huh. So what then?
Right. And that's what I'm saying, is like, well, apparently it's just pay for more therapy. Because they're not necessarily given answers. Like, they're told to just keep looking and keep searching and keep. What was interesting is so looking into history of psychology, because I had to teach this, what's interesting is that there were 3 men who got together and had a conference, and they established humanistic psychology. And almost immediately, one of the 3 separated, like split, which I thought was odd. I'm like, okay, the 3 of you just had this like monumental moment, establishing like with the field of psychology that still dominates today, right? And almost immediately he split. Well, until I dug into it, I didn't realize, like, in the 80s, they battled it out, and they did it publicly through academic journals. So each of them would one would publish an article completely, like, dogging the other one. And then that one would respond. And so you almost have to, like, read them in this, like, back and forth. Now, today, it would be a Twitter battle, right? Like, they would just sit there and... Not then, no. They had to like write the article, submit it to the journal, and like read it, and let him respond to it. But it's fascinating when you watch that, because the thing that, and his name was Rollo May, the thing that caused Rollo May to split from the humanists was the question of evil. And I have quotes like from these articles where he's like astounded, in fact, and he says, "Would you believe that Carl Rogers actually thinks that evil only exists in the environment? That people are inherently good?"
Negative.
and that evil only exists outside of us.
Wow.
And the way he even says it, it's like, because Rollo May was a Christian. And before he became a psychologist, he was going to be a pastor.
Wait a minute, we're talking about like 1980s?
Yes.
Like this ain't new.
No.
I mean, that's kind of surprising.
Well, the direction that this went, it coupled itself with Marxism. And so tell me if this sounds familiar at all. So instead of evil coming from the heart of people, okay, instead, the reason why people who are inherently good would commit an evil act is because they live in a corrupt system, or because of poverty, or because of racism,
Sounds like
or because of sexism, or because of capitalism.
Blaming somebody else for everything.
Yep. Every single answer is this system, right? This corrupt, evil system. Well, of course they're acting the way they're acting. Of course they're doing what they're doing because they've lived under this oppressive system and they're just responding to their environment. But if we change all that, if we tear down that system, or if we do these different social experiments, then their inherent goodness will come forward and they'll just naturally stop doing the evil
I
things.
wonder how he feels 60 years after that. Today.
Oh, they
We're
still
on the
believe
news.
this.
Sound like a news broadcast, what you just did.
Right.
100%, right? Yes. So that's why I'm sharing this, is that's what we're up against. Okay? So this is why, like, I'm talking about this, is because we have experienced that Jesus is our source. We have the experience that he's the answer to all those existential questions. But the world is being told that the answers are inside of them and that they're not to blame for any of the bad choices that they make because it's all outside of them in these systems. And if they just vote and give more power to the people who promise that they're going to fix the system. And I'm sitting here going, hold on. People created the system. So
That's
you're sitting here
exactly
trying to
what I
blame the
was thinking.
systems for evil. Didn't
Right.
people
It's like
create
somebody
them?
created the system.
Right.
Still on people.
They
The evil in the people that created the system.
Right.
Yep. Well, and there's actually a guy who, Solzhenitsyn is his last name. And he originally, he was in Russia, so the whole like Marxist thing happened, right? And he truly believed that all of their societal ills was because of rich people, right? It's the bourgeoisie, it's all the rich people. Well, then he found himself in one of their gulags. Yep. And all of a sudden, he realized, nope, because there ain't no rich people. You know, like everybody here's not rich. Like everybody here now, we're all slaves basically, and they're still acting evilly. Like, you know, and that's when he came to this conclusion that the line between good and evil runs down the center of every man's heart.
Well, you know, Einstein said it best when he, you know, in one of his debates I read with his professor, it was recorded, when he said that, you know, cold is not a thing because we measure heat. Cold is a lack of heat.
Yep.
Same with color. Black is not a color, it's a lack of light.
Mm-hmm.
White is all the colors.
Yep.
All the colors. Same with evil. Evil is not a thing, it's not measured, it's a lack of God.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, and that's exactly, is for us, and this is why I did so poorly in that original philosophy class, because I was still looking at everything through the Bible, right? Which teaches us, yes, there is a devil. Yes, there are fallen angels. Yes, there are demons, right? Yes, we know this. But if we're honest, oftentimes we don't really need any help coming up with all the bad ideas.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Because we have our own fallen nature.
That's
We
right.
have our own pride. We have our own selfishness.
Yes.
Right? We don't have to teach a 2-year-old how to be selfish. We got to teach him how to not be.
That's
Yeah,
right.
put a group of kids together and just watch.
Right?
Exactly right.
And anytime I taught this, like in college, like that was one of my points, is I'm sitting here going, hold up, you're sitting here saying they're all born good, then why is the preschool class not
everybody.
perfect? Like it's like, no. Right? Oh my goodness. I remember we had to watch Sam because his favorite color was red. And he was in toddler soccer tots, it's like toddlers, you know. And they had one red circle. So their kids were supposed to line up on their colored circles. And if any other kid dared to stand on the red one. He would go body check them. and we'd be like, Sam, you can't do that. And he goes, red is my favorite color.
It's mine.
And that's red. Okay? Nobody had to teach him that. We had to teach him to not do that, right? So
I literally saw red.
he really did see red. Yep. All right. So we know, okay, that we're supposed to crucify our flesh. Yes, we're supposed to resist the devil. Yes, we're supposed to cast out demons. But if we're not crucifying our flesh, then does that even matter?
Right.
No, because you got open doors all day long.
100%.
Right. You know? And so it's like, yeah, it's like your doors are all open and yet you're sitting here trying to like sweep everything out. And it's like, how about we actually start with the inside of us and we start crucifying that flesh, right? So no amount of self-help books, mantras, positive affirmations, manifesting potential, none of that is going to actually change anything. Only Jesus can.
That's right.
Because when we crucify our flesh, right, we are giving it to him. We must decrease so that he can increase. Right? We live a repentant life because in that repentance, right, it is dying to self. It is crucifying that flesh so that he can live in me. And that is who people are interacting with more and more, right? Because on our own, it doesn't matter how much you try to do, right? We know all our righteous deeds are filthy rags. They can't do anything, right? It's always going to be God in me. Now, one thing I found fascinating was Rollo May. Like, he's making a name for himself with this idea because it is different, you know. Well, he got contacted by a man who was working as a psychologist, but he was working for, all of a sudden I went blank on it, hospice, there we go. And he was an atheist. He still is alive. He still is an atheist as far as I know. But it was really getting to him, like all the death, because as an atheist, he has no hope, right? And so he sought out Rollo May and started to see that, you know, there's other ways to look at it and stuff. And I wish I could say that he became a Christian, but he didn't. Instead, he still had that dark pride, right, where he was like, you know what I can do? I can take Rollo May's ideas and I can make a secular version of it, right? And unfortunately, that's what people are offered the vast majority of the time when they go and they talk to a counselor or meet with a psychologist or, you know, even some pastors, unfortunately. They go and they buy the self-help books and they get all this, and it's like what they're getting is a secular version, a you can do it version. Like, you know, you got to just try harder. You just got to be better, right? I mean, I think that that's what most of Joel Osteen's stuff. Like, the Holy Spirit's not in that, you know? And so it's like, so that's what they're being offered is it seems right, but it's missing the source. It's missing the real answer because they're being told to find the answers within themselves.
That cotton candy and Skittles juice.
Right? Absolutely.
They're always great.
So he identified 3 primary existential dilemmas. And that's what I feel like I want to talk about in the next couple weeks is just, okay, these existential dilemmas is what the world is contending with. It's the people in our lives. Like, that's what they're struggling with, and we have the answer. So if we can understand what they're actually struggling with, then we can be better prepared that in those conversations that we can present the answer. Because one of the things that doesn't work is just dismissing their struggle and dismissing that dilemma, right? So the one I want to talk about this morning, I've already been kind of addressing, but it's the question of meaning. And even as an atheist, he said, it goes, human beings, apart from any other aspect of creation, seems to require meaning. That if you take the meaning away from someone's life, they most likely won't want to live anymore. Right? So when we don't have meaning, we don't have hope. There's a despair, right? And he also, and I thought this was very insightful, he said it's both the question of what is the meaning of life, but more importantly, what's the meaning of my life? Right? And I think that that's important for us too, because we can speak in a very cliche way. What's the meaning of life? Oh, it's to love God. It's to recognize God. It's like, okay, but what's the meaning of your life? Mm-hmm. Now, one thing I have, and I might have even shared it with some of you because I know that I've used it personally in loss and grief. And what he talked about was as far as the death provoking anxiety in us, right? Like people have a fear of death and all that. And he broke it down into 3 pieces, which I think has been really relevant. And especially, again, like as an atheist looking at it, I can see why he would have such intense fear of these different parts. But the first piece is the event of dying, right? So I once had a pastor say, I'm not afraid of being dead, I'm afraid of getting dead. Yep. Yeah, and that's where I put in some requests. I'm like, Lord, if by any chance, if I do die before you come, I want you to come. So hopefully this is moot. But I would like to go like in The Notebook, where it's me and my husband, and we're old, and we're together in our sleep.
I literally just told Amanda if I die, I would rather die of heartbreak. She goes before me, just like, let me go.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of how I'm going to get there.
Yeah, exactly.
I know my luck is going to go up in smoke like big time.
So it's just like, okay, there's truth to that, right? Like the event of death, right? And so when it comes to our own anxiety or fear, there's a healthy fear, like, because we're supposed to have a survival instinct, right? But when it comes to grieving somebody, sometimes the way they died can really be something we wrestle with, right? It could be the timing of it and the method of it. Well, the second piece is the what comes next. That really can provoke a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear, right? And that's why with Paul saying, we who have Christ should not grieve like those who don't have hope. Mm-hmm. And so when Brandon's mom died, like that was not a part of our grief at all, because we knew she loved Jesus.
Amen.
Right? And so for us, it was a mercy. We're like, go be with Jesus, because your tent, it's wore out. Like it don't. She had been riddled with cancer, and it was just like, oh my goodness. Like there's just, okay, Jesus, come get her. Like, that's a mercy, right? But because we could only do that because we knew she loved Jesus. We knew what came next, right? And so again, it's like, I'm not afraid of being dead because I know what comes next, right? But the last one is the part that I think most people actually wrestle with, whether it's in our own sense as well as grief, meaning applying to others. And it goes along with this existential dilemma. It's the ceasing to be. Part of our anxiety is that sense of ceasing to be. A major part of our grief, if not most of our grief, is the fact that they cease to be here. Mm-hmm. They cease to be with us, right? And so going into that idea of like being, ceasing to be. And as I was revisiting this with the Lord, he reminded me of something, like, I want to say it might have been even one of my first ahas, like when I came back into my relationship with the Lord. And might have been Rick Warren, it might have been Purpose Driven Life, because that's how long ago this was. But that we are immortal beings. Our spirit is immortal. We'll either spend eternity with God or without him, but it's immortal, right? But our flesh isn't. We live in a mortal tent, right? And so what he said is, we were created, and we still are in our essence immortal beings. That's why death doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. We weren't made for an end. And so when we wrestle with the ceasing to be, it's like, but if I know that it's a transition, I know that it's a new birth, I know that it's just going on to the next the next phase of existence of reality, right?
This is a step.
It's a step, right?
A metaphor for it. Better.
Huh? The butterfly?
Metaphor, yeah.
Yeah, so the butterfly, the Lord gave me that picture. I was talking to a friend of mine, and, when you look at the caterpillar, right, it's just this little worm that's crawling on a tree and eating leaves and all of that, right? Until one day, it spins itself a cocoon. And then when it's ready, it breaks out of the cocoon, and it now has wings. Okay? But it comes out of the cocoon, it now has wings, right? And it's flying, and it's no longer earthbound. But it also does not look the same.
It's much more beautiful.
So, what he showed me was our grief is we're still caterpillars. We're still stuck on the branch. And we're wondering where Johnny went. And he's like flying around in what it was always supposed to be. Mm-hmm. Like he finally made it. He finally, and they're just sitting here going like, but I miss him.
Yeah.
And he's flying right up
I don't think our mind is, I think it's just even though we are immortal beings, it's something about the limitations of our mind.
Mm-hmm.
When you said that about them ceasing to be, it made me think of my parents. I lost them within 6 months of each other.
Right.
And my mom was living at the house. Dad was living in a facility because his mind was toast. But when they passed away, the first time I went to their house, I could not cry. Because it brought me to my knees. It was the weirdest feeling to go into that house. Their cars are still in the garage. Everything's in its place, but they're
not
just
there.
not there.
Mm-hmm.
And I know where they are, and I'm happy for them.
Right.
I wouldn't ask for them back for anything in this world. But it's so weird, and it's like what you can see with your physical eyes is what you've been seeing for 25 years. But you feel that absence like a vacuum, because when they left this world, and their spirits are gone. But like I said, I know where they are. God has given me visions of my mom dancing in heaven in fields of wildflowers, with her hands up. She's so happy, and she's young,
Yep.
so I know, and I wouldn't change a thing. But
And that's the ceasing to be.
right.
They cease to be here. We know they don't cease to be completely, like, they moved on to the next thing, but
What we can see.
mm-hmm. Yep.
I have a question, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. Not to go doom and gloom, but this is something that really I wrestle with. So Amanda and I were just doing Uber Eats, and somehow we got on the conversation of my dad. And I was just telling her about my dad, and I just started having just all these memories about him. Mm-hmm. And we're actually on the Natchez Trace bringing a delivery, and how it came up, how the emotion came up was, I remember him always telling me that he wanted to take me on the Natchez Trace from Natchez up to Chattanooga.
Mm-hmm.
And I start crying, and I'm like, Daddy, I'm on the train. What I mean? But what do you say? And I know it's not like we have to let the dead bury the dead. I get that. But I struggle to make peace with the fact, and this is what I told Amanda, I don't think I'm ever going to see him again.
Mm-hmm.
So with loved ones that we don't know or do know that they didn't have a relationship with Jesus.
Right.
In my heart, I want to be like, all right, Lord, can I pray for his soul in the afterlife?
Right.
You know what I mean? Which I know that's
Right.
not. But what would you say to someone wrestling with that process?
We don't know what exactly happens right after death. We also don't know, projecting into the future, about the millennial reign. Is it only the humans that are alive there? Is it the ones who maybe they were, kind of the idea of purgatory kind of a thing? We don't know. And because of that, because we don't know, we have to hold on to the certainty of what we do know. Mm-hmm. And what I do know is that God is love, and he doesn't want anyone to perish. and God is just. And so there are certain things that he cannot compromise on. And I just trust that whatever he does is good.
His sovereign,
And that he is going to operate in perfect harmony between being fully loving and fully just. And so I don't know what that'll ultimately look like or how that'll ultimately play out. And so it's holding on to that. Okay, God, I know that whatever it is, however it works, whatever it looks like, it is ultimately loving and just, and it's ultimately good. And so rather than trying to sort out something where there is no clear answer, there's no certainty. And in fact, that video that I shared, I need to share it with all y'all, but he said, because he can see in the spirit, he's a seer, he said the Lord showed him that there is a principality over, I don't know if he meant just the church or the country or what, but there's a principality of certainty. You know? Yeah, I think you might have saw it at the airport, yeah. But he said there's a principality of certainty. Because, and he said that's when, he didn't put it in these words, but what he described was his religious spirit. Because he had his own certainty of the right way to worship. Yeah. And like what, right? And so he was looking around, he's just like, wow, I didn't realize, like, certainty, our desire for certainty, right? And so the person talking to him was like, well, then what do we do with things like, did Jesus die? Was he resurrected? And it's like, but that's God's certainty. Mm-hmm. That's what we have to hold on to. We have to make sure we stay humble and we hold on to his certainties. And so when we don't have clarity, we got to go back to what we do know, what we can stand on, And so rather than getting consumed with what ifs that we won't have an answer to until we get on the other side, we need to stay on purpose and on task. Because here's the thing is we all have, we're born with this innate aversion to death, right? We have a survival instinct. So if we have these things, the fear of the event, the what comes next, the ceasing to be, we have all that, and we have this natural aversion to death, then how does a person get to a point where they're willing to and wanting to die? Right? It's like,
That's
so,
what I was thinking, how do you get?
yeah, and it's meaninglessness. When you lose the meaning. Like the greatest predictor of suicidality is hopelessness. When you have no hope. When there is no meaning. Right? And something that I would quote is the idea of meaninglessness is that if you take away a person's meaning, they may not physically die, they'll just want to. And so when we look at people's lives, it's like, ultimately it still goes back to Jesus. He's the source, he's the answer. And so first and foremost, we have to embrace him not just as the meaning of life, but the meaning of my life, the meaning of your life. Mm-hmm. And then we have to look around at the people that we get to interact with, and how many of them are despairing? Mm-hmm. How many of them have no hope? How many of them are trying to fill the void with things that are ultimately pointless? Because it's fascinating. The things that Irvin Yalom try to suggest as an alternative meaning for life, apart from Jesus, self-actualization. Go be your best self. Like go be your best self. Like somehow that gives meaning to life, right? But then you hear people who get to the top of their industries, right? Like they win the gold medal in the Olympics.
They do it all.
And then there's nothing left, right? Another one, hedonism, pleasure. Just go and try to have as much fun and experience all these different pleasurable things, and
You'll kill yourself doing that.
And look at Solomon. He did all that, and he still was not happy.
right? Creativity. So for people who are creative, it's like, the meaning of your life can be writing music and making, painting and sculptures and all this stuff. And it's like, but ultimately for what purpose?
Right.
What if no one appreciates?
And then the other one was altruism or activism, which is just a pagan religion, counterfeit religion, right? It's like, I'm going to go and pour my whole life into what?
Let's see, we're talking about old folks that I can relate to, and Lane can relate to. The old man retires at 68 years old. He's been driving, not 18-wheeler, but he's been driving a truck. He's been building a house. He's been doing whatever all his life, pulling wire for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
He retires. He's all excited. He gets done in his flower bed. He gets done fixing the fence, and he dies in his recliner.
Yep.
I mean, if he
There's
did,
no
I mean,
purpose.
it ain't got nothing to do with work or money. He just died in his recliner.
Because
Yeah.
of no purpose.
Felt like
Yeah.
he lost his purpose.
Right.
I watched my dad go to bed.
Yep.
My daddy won't quit because he's terrified of that.
Yep. Well, and so bringing up Solomon, isn't that what Ecclesiastes is?
Some people's read it.
Right? Ecclesiastes was written by Solomon, okay? The wisest man to ever live besides Jesus, the wealthiest man. Now, I don't know how wise this is, but he had 1,000 wives.
Not very smart.
I don't see how that's wise.
Not at all.
But,
That's enough to kill you.
I think that kept him superficial, where he never had to have a real relationship with anybody.
right?
He
Right?
just have one for every day of the 3
Yeah, he didn't have to work at anything
He had
because
to
if
be
he was
rich.
mad at you, he had 999 ones to go to. But if you think about it, in worldly terms, he had it all, right? And so he thought. So Ecclesiastes is him looking back over his life, right? And so if somebody can read the first 9 verses from Ecclesiastes 1. Ecclesiastes 1 through 9.
Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities. All is vanity. What profit has a man from all his labor in which he labored under the sun? One generation passes away, and another generation comes, but the earth continues forever. The sun also rises, and the sun goes down, and hastens to its place where it rose. The wind goes towards the south, and turns about to the north. It whirls about continually, and the wind returns again according to its circuits. And the rivers run into the sea, yet the sea is not full. To the place where the rivers go, there they go again. All things are wearying, man cannot utter them. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. The thing that has been, it is that which will be. And that which is done is that which will be done. And there is no new thing under the sun.
Nothing new under the sun, right? And in verse 12, starting verses 12 through 14, he says, I, the preacher, have been king over Israel and Jerusalem. So he's speaking for himself, right? I applied my heart to seek and to search out by wisdom all that is done under heaven. So he went and tried to live everything. So all of Irvin Yalom's ideas, Solomon was like, I'm going to go full bore for all of them, right? And it is an unhappy business that God has given to the children of man to be busy with. I have seen everything that is done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and a striving after the wind. Right? And in chapter 2, verse 1, he lists out pleasure. Pleasure was one of the options. I said in my heart, come now, I will test you with pleasure. Enjoy yourself. But behold, this also was vanity. So he went after self-actualization. He went after pleasure. And at the end of it, he said, nope, that was vanity too. Verse 9, so I became great and surpassed all who were before me in Jerusalem. Also, my wisdom remained with me. So he was the smartest. He was the best. And whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. I kept my heart from no pleasure, for my heart found pleasure in all my toil, and this was my reward for my toil. Then I considered all that my hands had done, and the toil I had expended in doing it, and behold, all was vanity, and a striving after the wind, and there was nothing to be gained under the sun. So he went after all of that. All the things that the world keeps trying to offer people and tell people, you don't need God, you just need yourself. You just need to go and earn more, do more, experience more pleasure, travel more, buy more things, right? Like all this stuff, get more followers, get more views, get more likes, all these things. And what he is saying is it's all just a striving after the wind, right? It is a vanity. Can somebody read from chapter 8, Ecclesiastes 8? Ecclesiastes 8, verses 10 through 13.
Then I saw the wicked buried. They used to go in and out of the holy place and were praised in the city where they had done such things. This also is vanity. because the sentence against an evil deed is not executed speedily. The heart of the children of man is fully set to do evil. Though a sinner does evil 100 times and prolongs his life, yet I know that it will be well with those who fear God, because they fear before him. But it will not be well with the wicked, neither will he prolong his days like a shadow, because he does not fear before God.
So that made me think of the activism, the altruism, the religion, right? Because he's saying that the wicked, they went into the holy place. They did the things, right? They were praising the city for all the things that they did. But yet, it was still vanity. Because if you're not doing it with a pure heart, if you're not doing it for the Lord, unto the Lord, and instead you're being like the Pharisees, Jesus said, that's the reward right there. They already got it. They're not storing up anything in heaven. And so, like, when I read that one, I was like, and especially the sentence against an evil deed is not executed speedily. Wow. Like, because when we look at certain things, it can be really disheartening for us going, Lord, like, why are they still prospering? Why is that? It seems like they're doing well and all this. And it's like, hold up. The sentence is not always executed speedily.
Because he's merciful.
He is merciful. Right? And so it's looking at this too, even the people who seem to be doing good, or they seem to think, they're very self-righteous, right? They think that what they're doing is good. So let's go to the end, chapter 12. So at the very end, after he has considered all these things that he sought after, everything on Irvin Yalom's list as an alternative meaning to life, right? Verses 13 and 14. Somebody read those two verses, because this is his final conclusion. Ecclesiastes 12, 13, 14.
Now all has been heard. Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil.
So after he's lived that life and he's experienced it all, he's saying everything else is vanity. And he's calling us to fear God and keep his commandments. That is the only thing that will actually give us meaning. Fear God and keep his commandments. Jesus said, if you love me, you'll obey me. That's what this verse is saying, right? If you love me, you'll obey me. Like the only purpose that we have is to love him, worship him, serve him, follow him. Everything else is going to ultimately be empty and meaningless. And so I just wanted us to sit on that this morning, so that the first question we answer for ourselves is, what's the meaning of my life? And make sure it's fully aligned with the true answer. But also pay attention this week. Like, you'll see it, you'll hear it. You'll see it in people's posts, but you'll also hear it in conversations and different. It's like, so many people are struggling with meaninglessness. They are searching, they are striving. They don't realize they're striving after the wind, and they need the answer. They need the true source. And so as we have opportunities to speak that, to share that, to represent that, I want us all to fully embrace that, because as we just, like I said, it's really been on my heart this week is, again, prodigals, and just like, there's so much of it that the world is selling them a bill of goods. The world is offering them nothing that actually ultimately means anything. And they're lying to them, telling them, no, you're good. You're all good. You got the answers inside yourself. You don't need God. You can be your own God, right? And here's all these things that can give you meaning, instead of the source of all meaning. So, bringing the truth to the world, bring the truth to the people around us, so that they can finally find the answer.